No, but really, what is Israel Mukuamu going to do with the Cowboys in 2024? Because I believe they need to make a specific decision now. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I'm your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, usually streaming with you live Thursday and Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central. Today, not the case because I'm out of town. I'm probably getting back in at this precise moment that you're watching this video. But anyways, I'm back, man. I'm happy we're here to talk some Cowboys football. And I will say this. On Thursday, we talked about minicamp, and we talked about how we didn't learn much from it. And I laid out 3 things that we did learn during that 3-day period, and also OTAs. One of my big things that was on every article that I did talking about OTAs preview and players to watch and the discussions that we had here on Primetime, one of the big things for me was figuring out what Israel Mukuamu is to the 2024 Dallas Cowboys. It's a difficult one to figure out, honestly. By the way, shout out to Izzy, man. Primetime guest Israel Mukuamu. By the way, we had him a couple of years ago here on the show. It was fun to talk to him. But man, Izzy right now is a defensive back, obviously, for Dallas. But I'm not sure if he's a cornerback, if he's a safety. And I got to say that at this point, I kind of feel like it's unlikely for him to play at safety. So I wanted the Cowboys to make the obvious decision and switch him to cornerback. Now, let me explain my reasoning here very quickly. You look at the defensive back room right now, and man, I'm looking at my roster projection, and I had 5 safeties and 5 cornerbacks being carried for the Cowboys. That's not including CJ Goodwin. So in my way too early roster projection, I had Trayvon Diggs, I had Daron Bland, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, and Eric Scott Jr. making the team at cornerback. At safety, I had Hooker, Wilson, Juan J. Thomas, Marquise Bell, and Israel Mukuamu. I have him listed as a safety. You can list him as a cornerback if you want, right? He basically played even snaps at both positions last year. We know he played at cornerback when the Cowboys called upon him, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playoff game, and he played nickel and did it exceptionally well versus Tom Brady, versus Chris Godwin. And that game kind of got us thinking like, hey, we want to see more from Izzy, but the Cowboys have also had a pretty strong secondary in the last couple of years to the point where they haven't had the need to really play Mukuamu at cornerback or safety. But going into 2024, there are some things that have changed a little bit, and we saw it last year. Juan J. Thomas and Marquise Bell are legit. Like, Juan J. Thomas played at such a high level in 2023 that you could hypothetically get into a discussion as to could he fight for a starting role. I don't think he will for several reasons. I think Donovan Wilson is a pretty strong fit for Mike Zimmer's defense, right? I think of Harrison Smith shooting through the gaps into the backfield, just making plays as a rusher here and there, doing a little bit of everything. And I think of Donovan Wilson as a perfect fit for that role. And Hooker is a pretty strong free safety. That sounded weird because of the strong free safety thing, but he's a pretty good free safety, right? He's got that range. I think he's the best safety on the Cowboys for that specific role. So I don't see him being benched. But hypothetically, you could see Juan J. Thomas making you second guess that decision for the Cowboys in training camp. That's how good he played in 2023 in limited playing time, in my opinion. Lit it up in the preseason, lit it up in training camp, had some moments in the regular season. That's what you want to see. And then Marquise Bell played a whole lot of football for you in 2023. Did so at Mike, basically. Not Mike. Did so at off-ball linebacker. He wasn't really the Mike, but that was Clark for the most part. But you saw Marquise Bell excel in a specific area of his linebacker play. And you know what that is. That is his coverage. Man, he was good. If you looked at coverage grades among linebackers in Pro Football Focus, Marquise Bell was at the very top of that list. There was no better cover linebacker in the league. And that makes a lot of sense considering he's a defensive back that was playing linebacker. Going into 2024, we've talked about the Cowboys adding weight at linebacker, right? Overshown is going to be bigger. Damon Clark is likely going to be bigger as well. They added Eric Kendrick. So it's going to be a very different looking linebacker room. And that likely means, even though we haven't really had like official word on this, that likely means Marquise Bell is a safety again. And based on what we saw from in coverage from him, like I think he's got that depth chart spot secured over Israel Mukuamu. He's just played more recently for the Cowboys. He's been pretty good. And I think we'll likely see him as a safety as well. So that leaves Mukuamu buried in the safety depth chart at number 5, behind Bell, behind Thomas, Wilson, and Hooker. And I think that's crazy to think about, considering we've seen some good football from Israel Mukuamu. When I put together my way too early roster projection, I thought, because of the numbers game, that I might leave him out of the projection. But I kept thinking, he's too good to be cut, man. He's got to be my number 53 guy. Like if I'm looking at him and guys at other positions, I would just much rather have Easy on the team. We've seen him play safety. We've seen him play cornerback. He's been more than decent, and we've seen him improve over the years. So I'm at a point where I'm like, should Mukuamu be switched to cornerback full-time? Forget about the dual position stuff and just train him to be a cornerback and have him be the number 4 guy? And instead of having him work as a backup safety, remove that from his to-do list and just train him. And the Cowboys talked about cross-training players, right? Because they have this dual position aspect and value to them, and that helps them make the roster. Focus Easy's efforts on playing nickel cornerback and outside cornerback and have him be your number 4 guy. Because it's either that, or you look at the rest of the Cowboys cornerback depth chart, and it's Nahshon Wright. I'm not sure if he's it. I'm just not sure at this point. This feels like the season in which Wright either becomes the number 4 guy or he's cut from the roster. I think he's a very likely roster cut, honestly, going into training camp, especially if we start looking at Mukuamu as a cornerback. So you've got Diggs, Bland, Lewis, and then who's number 4? Is it Nahshon Wright? Is it Eric Scott Jr. in his second year, who, again, speaking of guys that we didn't learn about in minicamp, that's one of them. Like, I wished we learned more from him. And when I say that, I don't mean that he didn't make plays or anything. He even had a pick. I mean that we just didn't hear coaches talk about it. Josh Butler, right, the UFL guy or USFL, Josh DeBerry, who's a UDFA, he's not going to be number 4. I don't think Carson is going to be number 4 right away, and I'm excited about Carson. I just don't know if he's going to step in and be the number 4 guy. Could Mukuamu be it? And here's a better question for you. And I want to see your thoughts on the comments. I'll make sure to check them and talk with you about this, because I want to hear your thoughts, right? That's why we like at A to Z Sports Dallas, right? We like to interact with you. Mukuamu has a better shot, you tell me, of getting on the field at a cornerback or safety if he's a backup. Where is he likeliest to play? Assuming that you decide what his position is going to be before any injury or anything like that. I think it's definitely cornerback. Because at safety, he's dealing with Juan J and Marquise Bell. I think that might be the strongest position room in the entire Cowboys roster. At a cornerback, though, the depth isn't necessarily great. There's some talent in there, sure. There's some upside, of course. I don't see the ready for the NFL starter, though. Not starter, number 4 guy, backup. I don't see the guy that I would be comfortable with if a cornerback goes down in week 1, if it's not Mukuamu. So that's my way of saying I believe the Cowboys should make this official. I believe the Cowboys going into training camp should make Israel Mukuamu a cornerback full-time. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me in the chat. That will be it for me tonight. Hit the like button for me, and I will see you tomorrow. And on Thursday night, we'll be back on the live show. And Skywalker Steele is going to be joining us. We're going to have a crossover A to Z Sports Dallas show. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much. See you very soon.